Calling the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, June 12th, 2025, and we welcome to the City of Soledad regular Planning Commission meeting. It's 6:02 p.m. and I'm calling the meeting to order. This meeting will also be streamed on the city's YouTube channel and for convenience of our community and for viewing purposes. Commissioner roll call.
Chair Jody Torres Aguilera. Absent. Vice Chair Sergio Diaz.
Present.
Commission Member Sandy Fuerte.
Present.
Commission Member Roberto Cruz.
Present.
Commission Member Lorenzo Sanchez is absent. Thank you.
3 commissioners are present with 2 absent. We have quorum. Let's continue with the meeting. Next item, Pledge of Allegiance. Can please everybody stand up? Face the flag. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I believe this is where we modify the agenda and move the approval minutes to the next meeting where we have all the commissioners present.
Okay.
So we move on to business. At this time, we're doing public comment.
Yes.
At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on items of interest to the public that are within the matter or jurisdiction of the planning commission. Speakers shall have a limited time. Please be brief and to the point. No action or discussion shall be taken on any item appearing on the agenda, except that commission members may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by members of the public.
Do we have any?
Any comments?
No, we don't have anyone else.
Are there any public comments on Zoom? No, you said no?
No.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item. And this is business or new business?
Business.
So status report on the 2025 Siempre Soledad General Plan update and request for direction on the draft land use and circulation maps.
Do you want to start? All right. Good afternoon, Planning Commission. My name is Ariana Mora, Senior Planner with the City of Soledad, and today we'll be presenting the draft Soledad General Plan update, draft land use and circulation map for presentation and obtaining direction for any modification and recommending to the City Council to also approve this map and allow us to move forward with the required environmental work that we need to do in order to complete a full-on draft general plan for the City of Soledad. So I'll be sharing my screen briefly to show this presentation. So as we mentioned, and we brought up multiple times throughout the general plan journey, a lot of this information we generate is through a lot of community engagement. We have been very proactive as a department, working with our community engagement department as well as our consultants to develop all the information that we're proposing tonight. Here is a brief agenda, and it's outlined as well in the staff report about providing a general plan summary, project steps, circulation and land use maps. We'll go much in deep depth about the changes that we did and what we're proposing now for this new general plan update. What is the next steps? As we mentioned, this item is critical to developing a draft general plan that again will come back to Planning Commission to formally accept and adopt or move for recommendation to then accept and adopt by the city council. And then we'll get into clarifying questions or have a discussion on any edits or modifications that you may recommend to the city council as well. So again, just as a brief reminder, what is the general plan? It's a guiding document for all cities that is required by state law. It is a fundamental land use and development policy document that we have to update every 20 or so years. And our last general plan was adopted in 2005. Therefore, we are due for a new general plan as the city grows and expands. New different policies are proposed that may not be as strong during the 2005 general plan, but may be now relevant for this new 2045 general plan. This document shows how the city will grow and conserve resources, establish the community vision for physical form of the city. Within the staff report, we did attach the vision and guiding principles of the general plan, which is really what we're basing off as we adopt this document throughout. And as we mentioned also, we got extensive community engagement, and it did come to the Planning Commission for approval, a recommendation of approval. More so, a general plan really identifies important community issues. It really highlights what we need to work on and provide timelines of when we want these types of items to be created. And a lot of these issues and visions, we have to start with the proposed land use maps and circulation maps, meaning how is traffic going to be accommodated, how are land uses going to affect that circulation as well. So if we're proposing more dense areas, we have to prepare for the outcome when it comes to circulation or pedestrian improvements to make sure we have a balance of both and create a sustainable community. At the end, the general plan is a basis for fair and consistent local land use decisions and related policies. So at the upon adoption of this general plan, it'll help us really solidify our municipal code, and we will adopt our policies that will help us meet those goals as outlined in a general plan. Really briefly, again, this is a required document that consists of the required elements provided in the presentation. Right now, we're focusing solely on the land use and circulation, but as I briefly mentioned, everything kind of relates to each other. Therefore, we have to think big picture items in how we're proposing land uses in specific areas of town, and how is that going to affect the ongoing circulation, housing, conservation and open space, noise, safety, and environmental justice and economic development and so on. So just as as we're going through this review, those are a few points to really take into consideration and get your feedback for us to make modifications, or if you have any questions on that. We'll go on to the project steps. Where are we now? We're towards the end of this general plan process. We're at the circulation and land use map stage. We anticipate having an adopted general plan towards the end of January of next year. So we still have a few months left, but again, this step is really critical as it guides the document and the environmental impact report. And having that draft general plan document coming back to the Planning Commission, we will formally adopt the land use and circulation map. So that's one thing to be clear on, that today it's more of a recommendation of a draft land use and circulation map. And once we finish this review and then getting your feedback and the city council feedback, we will bring it back again during the general plan review. And that's when we finalize and approve the final draft. This is a brief project timeline just to give you another idea of how much community engagement we have done through the past months in this process. So as I mentioned, in May of 2024, the City Council, with recommendation by the Planning Commission, approved the vision and guiding principles, which are attached in your staff report. Through July and October 2024, those vision and guiding principles allowed us to draft alternatives. We did engagements during the Hot Summer Days event. We did an online survey and then conducted an alternatives workshop with the community. And this really helped us solidify and engage with the community of really what they want. And we've heard it throughout pretty much the same, that more commercial, more entrance and exits within the city. So we get those similar points, and we believe that the proposed draft land use map and circulation map highlights that. And I can get it, we'll get more into details about that. In February 2025, the staff conducted a general plan steering committee review, which really had the first draft circulation and land use maps to them. The steering committee review consisted of different agencies that included the Healthcare District, TAMSI, which is a transportation agency of Monterey County. It had the school district, Soledad Unified School District, and also other community members that are interested in this type of topic and wanted to be engaged in the conversation with those agencies. And we got really extensive feedback at that point. Majority of it was, yes, I understand what you're trying to do, but this map is hard to understand as a regular member of the community. So we listened and we created definitions, which is where we provided a definition form for the land use map of what those land uses mean. And again, we'll get into it into the presentation. And then we also made sure that the maps were easily color coded and understandable for the community. So that was some of the feedback, as well as proposing intersection improvements in different areas of town, particularly near schools, as school traffic was a big concern during conversation within the steering committee review. Also, in June of 2025, the city hosted a traffic safety forum. I believe that's what it was called. Where Public Works presented the improvements they're working on to relieve traffic concerns throughout the city. And we had the draft circulation map there as well in our little booth to also provide more feedback. And we got some few responses about the entrance and exits of Soledad, as well as other areas in town. And as I mentioned, we'll get further into that analysis in the presentation. The alternatives was really the big basis to develop the land use and circulation map. Majority of the commenters that I mentioned wants commercial options throughout the city, both big box and neighborhood retail. That's really the biggest popular answer as we got through this community engagement. And then continued connections and transportation safety within Soledad and the region. So not just working on transportation within city limits, but also making sure we have safe access to and from Soledad to other cities, whether it's going northbound or southbound of Soledad. Also popular answer, as I mentioned, was the railroad crossing. As you know, we do have a railroad going through town. How can we improve that moving forward, or is there a safer option for us to connect through the railroad, which involves other partners such as AMBAG or TAMSI. So that's something that we also explored. And when it comes to transportation and alternatives in the land use map, we also have to think about the needs when it comes to housing. So there is a lot of popular answers when it came to single family housing, missing middle housing, multifamily, and then senior housing. So that creates different types of land uses, whether it's single family, multifamily, mixed use housing, commercial mixed use. That gives us that sense of land uses to implement in our maps. And then lastly, I think there's also a big interest to make sure that our downtown has a lot of activity. So we focus on that as well, where we created a designated land use just for downtown as an effort to bring in flexible uses that are compatible with what a downtown should look like. As mentioned, we will be defining that and making sure we can actively provide retail, restaurants, entertainments, and potentially housing. So we'll get into the deep dive of the circulation and land use maps. And I know it's a lot of information with the land use maps and circulations and what it means. So feel free to stop me if you want further explanation on the slides or anything else. But I'll make a pause right now if you have any questions regarding the engagement and or the process so far.
I just have a question of, say, to keep in mind the big picture. Are we gonna be given a copy of the draft to review so that we can look at the big picture and see the pieces that we're looking at? I know the last time we did this, we actually did get a copy
Mhm,
prior, so we could look at it, see how the pieces fit, pieces of the puzzle,
mhm,
really understand. Because for me right now, I'm feeling like it's just we're choosing something in isolation
mhm,
outside of everything, given that we haven't really met that much
mhm,
and we haven't really gotten reviews.
mhm,
I know I had a meeting with Beatrice and Megan, and they were gonna add the board here to reviews of what decisions were being made in city council,
mhm,
so it'd be a little bit more informed, but I haven't really seen anything as of yet, so,
mhm,
just that's, I think, my biggest question, because I
mhm,
did review, I did read everything, but I still kind of felt,
mhm.
even like right now, you're talking
Yeah.
about it, and I'm like, okay, those are the pieces I kind of saw, but I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me was big picture. If we're looking at big picture, and I'm a big picture thinker, I need to see the piece so I can see where the pieces fall.
Okay. Do you want me to respond to
Yeah.
that? I guess just to understand your question, you want to see the land use map or you want to see really like the
The draft
annotate?
of the general plan that you guys have.
Oh, the existing one right now.
Yeah, well, you guys are
Uh-huh.
working on right now, right?
Yes.
A draft.
Mm-hmm.
And so you guys want us to keep a big picture,
Mhm.
but if we haven't been able to review it, I don't have all the pieces of the puzzle.
Oh, okay. So I think the draft for the general plan has been sent to the planning commission. We have
With all
our,
the updates that you've done and that you guys are talking about right now?
Yeah, it wasn't attached in the staff report.
No.
no? Um, let
We
me
had
see.
the maps, we had just a staff report and the vision and guiding principles. That was it.
It was no map.
The maps were there. Three
But-
maps.
Yes. So that's the map that we're reviewing today.
Are you talking about wanting to know more updates about where the overall picture of the general plan is at?
Yes.
And how this falls in. with
How this falls in, exactly.
Oh, okay.
'Cause
So
you're
a compare
showing
and
us something-
contrast.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're showing us something in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, especially because you said to keep in mind the big picture, if we haven't been shown the big picture, or even been able to read the big picture,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way we could actually keep it in mind. So we're seeing something in isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So getting a copy of what you guys have worked on so we could look at it, read it, see how those pieces fit into what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. I can pull up the existing draft, not draft because they were finalized, but I can pull up the land use map and the circulation map from the 2005 general plan. And I see your point. And through discussion, we did not want to include it to the packet, even though it's available for the public, just for the record, because we're not comparing well, yes, we are comparing contrasting, but I think because of how outdated those policies are, we're trying to think of big picture of what we need and how we relate to the community now moving forward. It's still good to see, yes, this is what we completed in 2005, and these are improvements that we didn't complete in 2005. How can we implement those in our new land use and circulation map as well? Is that what you're referring to?
No, because we already saw that. We
Uh-huh.
saw that last year,
Uh-huh.
right? What I'm saying is, what draft do you guys have right now? What is it that's available to the public that's showing all of the changes already
So in other words, you showed, as you walk through, if you go
Mhm.
back on the slides, you showed us, yeah, keep going. What have we already done? And you said we're already,
That's.
yeah.
Mhm.
So looking at the vision guiding principles, you have that positive on that. So looking at those other pieces and the draft alternatives,
Mhm.
how do those fit into the decision we're making? As that was kind of a statement that was made, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yes, so you want to see the information that was generated through the alternative stage to see how it's going into the land uses.
Mhm.
Okay, so that information, maybe it might, okay, so the alternatives is information, I can pull up some maps, I have to go through our files, but, the alternatives are pretty much giving two options to, when we're doing this engagement, it was two options to the community about whether we want to focus slowly more on downtown or do we want to focus on big box retail services. And within those two different maps, the community was pretty much voting more on one or the other. To simplify that, as whether downtown was prioritized more as a high density use, where you're focusing more on mixed use as well. And then big box retailer, it's like, okay, let's expand our multifamily housing because there's the differences between mixed use and multifamily housing, and then focus more on light industrial manufacturing uses. At the end, we gathered all the input to draft these land use map definitions and placements of these specific land uses throughout town based on that feedback. So
So who created that map right there?
this was our consultant, and this was based off the alternatives because the connection between land uses and circulation is mirrored to where we want to focus on. So right here, as you can see towards downtown, we're focusing more improvements there where to be more pedestrian friendly, because through the process of those two alternatives, whether you focus on downtown or big box commercial, people wanted big box commercial, but they still wanted a live downtown. Therefore, that makes us think, okay, we need to make sure our downtown area is a walkable safety space so that people can go and enjoy it more, because if you present a safer space, people are inclined to walk there and or bike or use alternative means and so on. And then that correlates to economic development, because the more people you see in your downtown, developers or small businesses are engaged. You have more economic what is it called, a synergy throughout that allows them to continue thriving and or encouraging others to come into downtown.
Yes, and this map was the combination of the feedback that we received at the alternative use workshop, the one that we had towards the end of last year. We don't have an updated draft of the general plan because all of these are components to the bigger picture.
Which-
So,
She said that you're gonna have by the end of next year.
Yes, the final
Mhm.
one. Mhm.
so these are some of those pieces, but this map is actually combining the feedback that we receive at the alternative workshops, and then it gets a little bit more technical when we talk about the land use map,
Mhm.
but we are able to translate the land use map based on what people, the type of uses, well, the type of businesses or the type of roads that they wanted to see. So we were able to gather the feedback and translate it into how that looks into the land use. But as far as an updated general plan draft, we don't have that. We're working into the different components, but all of the historical documents that we have during the time that we have been working on the general plan is part of the Siempre Soledad website. And this is where we update all of our any workshops that we have, any news that we have, and any historical documents are gonna be here as well.
Mhm.
But we're happy if there is a particular document that you would like to further discuss, we're more than happy to provide additional context on that.
so we have to go and dig around for ourselves. Yeah,
So if you want the information, so I guess I'm still trying to understand the
I
question
guess
is
the
like,
question is,
Mhm.
you're gonna want us to make a decision
Mhm.
one, we haven't met in 3 months.
Mhm.
Okay, so I feel kind of we are behind on information that you guys have done
Mhm.
through city council, your own work in collaboration together.
Mhm.
And I don't feel that with the information I received today
Mhm.
and that I've read over the last couple of days after I received the email, I don't feel as informed as I could be, I guess.
Mhm.
And you're just doing a review of the stuff that minimal things that you sent.
Mhm.
So I'm just wondering, is there more information or will there be more time for us to get more information to make an appropriate decision or recommendation, should I say?
Mhm.
We haven't really, I mean, these maps, the work that we have been doing behind the scenes is really based on the workshops that we had last year.
Mhm.
So in between those workshops and these maps, we haven't created anything else related to the general plan.
No, it's been based off the vision. So we talk about the alternatives, which it's a phase of the general plan. It doesn't have to come to the planning commission and or city council. It's more of a, how do I call, like a session for us to really understand what is the community wanting for us to develop these land use maps and circulation. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're looking for that information and what feedback we received. And some of the feedback will be presented in this update because we relayed that feedback to create those circulation and land use maps.
So we just have to wait. Or go into Siempre Soledad and look at what's been collected.
Well, some of those points and the feedback that we received during the alternative phase, we're touching in the presentation, and it is provided in the staff report of what the main points were so that we can consider to the development of these maps. So those alternatives, it's really more like points. It was never really a map. Maybe that's also the difference there because we didn't tell everyone to create a map and tell us where these improvements are needed. We did that during the general steering committee as technical advisors because they understand really where the challenges are for local agencies, and some residents were included in that. And we did listen with some, they did write up those intersections and so on. But when it comes to the alternative phase, it's really like, okay, do you want option 1 or option 2? And the majority, whether I'm going to say focus on downtown, okay, well, let's focus on the downtown. And what do we need to do to make more of a lively downtown? Okay, let's be more pedestrian safety. Let's increase the density in downtown to have more mixed use housing. And that's what we were focusing here with those points. And that's the information that we're presenting today to Planning Commission, those points. And how does it relate to the creation of the circulation map and the land use map?
Who decided on those two options?
It was an option between, this was last year and I can't remember. Because we also have to look at the environmental concerns as well, because an environmental analysis. So it was either, I think we did a survey too, but I can't remember. Let me see.
I think maybe what it's best is I will suggest that we continue with the presentation. If towards the end of the presentation, you don't feel like you have enough information for an action, we can assess that.
Mhm. Yeah, we can.
All right.
I guess,
Yeah,
before we
yeah.
go, so my questions have been like, who's making those decisions, right? Choose A or B, who chose A and B? And then the question was, we're looking at the maps that you had on the other screen.
Mhm.
Who designed this? Like, who decided this road, like in the new project up here?
Mhm. Yeah.
This way, there's a
So-
roundabout.
Mhm.
certain spot.
So now that we'll go into the circulation map, into the presentation. So a lot of these improvements, majority of them are based on the projects that Public Works currently has now, and they're working. So a big one is the road diet on West Street, where West Street was analyzed and it was found that there was a lot of speeding going up West Street, and there are road diets. So as you can see, West Street is proposed to have improvements in an effort to minimize traffic. Some of these improvements are also triggered based off the development that's coming in as we briefly mentioned Miramonte. They are responsible for some of these improvements in order to minimize traffic impact. And some of those improvements relate to what is being proposed on Miramonte annexation and then also on the north side of Soledad. It's the Miramonte section on the north side of Soledad is still being worked on, but we do know that improvements do need to happen within West Street and Orchard Lane, as those are the two main streets. Oh, and San Vicente, as those are the three main streets that will be going to Miramonte.
And that's what my
Mhm.
comment is gonna be like, how concrete are these maps? Because in my opinion,
Mhm.
it would be great if we could connect San Vicente, West, and was it Orchard, like in a straight road there,
Mhm.
right? So where we have a choppy red line there,
Mhm.
I think it would be wonders connecting, what is it, the north side to the south side of town, similar to how Gavilan does it,
Mhm.
right? So my questions are more about that.
Yeah.
Is there flexibility in adjusting this part, thinking about the
Mhm.
future and looking at the diagram here of the roads that are being proposed? Is there changes to this, or this is it?
So the one for Miramonte, it's kind of I don't want to say it's set because it really isn't, but for the main access roads, when it's San Vicente, West Street, and Orchard Lane, going into Miramonte, those improvements will be needed. When it comes to the hash outline where it connects existing Soledad to Miramonte, unfortunately, Miramonte is already approved with a tentative map where the residential houses will be facing back of each other. So those houses that are currently in Soledad, their yard is towards the hills. Miramonte will be building right behind it. And that's how the map was approved back in 2018. So we have to work with what was approved back then to implement it now and see what we can improve on that end. So that there is somewhat fixed. What we are looking at right now, the rest of the map and the improvements were generated through, again, public works improvements on the projects that they're working on, multiple intersection and improvements, but also a traffic engineer who developed a simulation to really understand how are these traffic areas going to be affected with such improvements. So before, the biggest change here in what we provided to the steering committee was that there was a lot of roundabouts proposed throughout Soledad. And after getting community feedback and questioning, why are you putting so many roundabouts, and complaining that roundabouts is not going to make it easy to go leave and out, and, to each their own, we took that advice. We provided it to our traffic engineers who are developing this map and our consultants. And they said, yes, you know what, it's right. We need to analyze that situation. Those roundabouts close to proximity in some areas of town won't make sense given the existing conditions and the existing routes within the center of Soledad. When it comes to the roundabouts that are on the north end of Soledad, those impacts are triggered by the Miramonte project, where it's allowing easier traffic flow to and from the 101 into San Vicente Road. That way people have option coming into town to go up north of Soledad or go towards our downtown area as well. So those roundabouts are kind of somewhat still solidified based on the Miramonte project. But again, until the Miramonte project really comes into life, we will make those adjustments only on the top section itself. And I think one way to think about the circulation map is that we are planning ahead and want to make sure we can capture at least the minimum improvements and not really shoot ourselves to high expectations. So if we really provide the minimum, the state can look like, okay, you at least provided a crosswalk, you at least provided a pedestrian safety route to and from Soledad, then that looks good on us, right? But if we provide something a little bit more complicated where, I think the biggest issue that we've seen is entrances and exits to Soledad, that we really do need another one. And unfortunately, it's expensive, and we have to collaborate with a state agency that, may or may not want us to do that for X reasons. But we know we need it, and we know that that's a goal of the city. And it'll lead to that policy to do whatever we can to do another exit. But if we don't provide it in a circulation map, again, let's not set ourselves for pretty much failure. Let's set the minimum bar. That way we know, okay, we at least need to provide this in the circulation map. Therefore, we provided more intersection, more lights, more pedestrian access, and then the connection between the railroad towards the south and the Soledad. As you can see, there is a route there that is being proposed as a connection from the industrial side to the residential side over by Metz Road. We see that that connection is needed as an easier and faster way to go into the commercial side of Soledad. However, excuse me, it would be best if we can connect farther outside of city limits. But again, we don't want to overcommit to something that we may not be able to acquire in the future. So we're looking for alternatives that we can connect within existing roads, but still noticing and noting that that connection is essential for the future of Soledad. So in summary, the updates and the information that we've collected through the alternative process, through community engagement, these were the top ones that influenced the circulation map, which included improved bike and pedestrian access, including east and west, and through the downtown underpass, which is the downtown tunnel that we call it there. So we want to make sure that, looking at easier ways to access to the source, maybe whether it's walking, driving, the need to feel safe to do that is what the priority is here. As I mentioned, the railroad crossing at Los Coches, future Pinnacles Parkway Trail, and a complete street. How feasible is that looking? If we use our existing space, land within city limits, we can work with that. But when we have to work outside of city limits, it creates a different process. We have to work with county, LAFCO, to get land. And then it also affects the nearby agricultural area. So we have to make sure we balance that out, as our area is really more dependent on agricultural land. We want to make sure we follow the appropriate rules when it comes to that as well. And as we mentioned, the traffic signal upgrades, we've seen or heard the community about wanting traffic signals throughout town to minimize speeding, improve crosswalks to make sure our town is walkable. And our town is small enough that we can still walk across town. And I think that's what we've heard. We want to keep it that way, where we can walk across town safely, whether it's through light up crosswalks at night or drive safely across town with more stop signs and so on. Roundabouts and intersection improvements for bikes and pedestrians. As we're making these improvements, we're not only thinking about cars, again, more about pedestrian safety as well. And as you saw in the circulation map, we are really focusing more on the downtown area for the reason that a lot of the community is wanting to make sure that our downtown stays alive and proactive. And one of the reasons is, again, feeling that need to, you can walk to your downtown area to make sure you can enjoy it for that reason.
Oh, yeah, I'd just like to make a note about
Yeah.
Andalusia Drive.
Yeah.
So Andalusia Drives, they're showing on the map. I actually live there on Andalusia.
Mhm.
And one of the issues that we have, and a lot of the neighbors that, I've gotten to know through the last, I've been living here since 2016. They do share concern, but they're more elderly people. They don't come out to the meetings.
Mhm.
And I agree with them, is there's a stop sign right in there. I think it's Andalusia and Regina.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I see consistently is cars blow through the stop signs.
Mm.
And the thing is there is actually quite a lot of foot traffic coming up and down that
Mhm.
street,
Mm.
because we have the high school, we have the middle school, and then we have the elementary school. I see a lot of moms in the mornings walking with their babies, a lot of things like that. And so to me, we have the elderly walking during the day, taking their walks. And so that has been an issue of concern. I've, tried to tell them, oh, go tell,
Mhm.
I'm only one voice, but Yeah, that it has been an issue of
Mhm.
people just blowing through the stop signs, blowing through the stop signs. They don't stop. It's on a consistent, regular basis.
Mhm. Okay. We can make a note of that. And I'm not mistaken, that area includes one of the biggest senior housing units,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's not just that stop sign they blow through. There's one other one right closer to the senior housing. So even if speed bumps were put there or something, it might kind of slow that down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I'm glad you pointed that out. We can definitely provide that information to our consultants to focus near that area on the proposed improvements.
Mhm.
As you can see in the map, there are the crosses, the blue crosses up says proposed intersection improvements.
Mhm.
Um, we're keeping it in a general term. That way we know, and once it comes to like, yes, you need to do a intersection improvement at that intersection because our general plan says so, we can analyze it at that time to see really what is that we need to provide, right? Whether maybe now we say a speed bump, but in the future, you know what, it's going to require a street light now
Mhm.
because of how much traffic it's generated throughout. So I also want to clarify that that's what those symbols mean and why they are in a very general statement. As also the proposed pedestrian improvements, you know, right now it's just pedestrian improvements, but at the time that we make sure that these improvements happen, um, each of them will be analyzed to see what is best at the time of the study. Mhm.
Thank you.
Any,
I got a question.
yeah.
I have a lot of questions and comments, but kind of holding off to the end.
Mhm.
So once again, this is a proposal.
Mhm.
We get on West Street, they're already working on the crosswalk improvement.
Mhm.
So these things are already happening.
Only some, and the reason why s- so this is anticipated to be adopted by January of 2026. We are including projects that are on the works and are finishing after the certification of the general plan in case there's some type of stop work and it just, you know, you just don't know how the economy goes these days. Once this final draft is adopted, then this is what the city will have to make sure they check off as the improvements that we thought at this point are what is it called, are important for the existing population. So right now, West Street is being improved. Work is starting, but we still don't have an anticipated timeline. And because this is also nearing, we want to make sure we capture that this street is important to have improvements for traffic and safety reasons.
Yeah, and I don't claim to know what the city engineers do, but
Mhm.
I did speak with him at the forum, and he did mention, as you mentioned, the simulation. I don't really have a lot of faith in a simulation.
Mhm.
You can sit in that parking lot of the high school and watch cars speed through there,
Mhm.
and with that stop sign gone, they know it's not going to be there. They're
Mhm.
just going to keep going faster.
Mhm.
And the kids don't use the crosswalk always, so if that light's not on, they think it's clear. Um, you know, you can put all the information. I think he said there was 7 different elements that they look at.
Mhm.
It may be pretty advanced, but I think they need to consider the human factor and sit out there and watch. Just right now, at this intersection, lady, I waited at the stop. Lady
Mhm.
on a bike just ran through the stop. And a lot of people don't know that if you're on a bike and you're in the bike lane on the street, you've got to follow the same rules of the road, and they don't
Mhm.
stop. If somebody else had the right of way and got into the intersection, she just it's again, the simulation will say this is how it would flow probably in a perfect world, but the human factor I think should be considered in standing out there
Mhm.
watching traffic. Yeah, it's
Yeah, and that's a fair comment there too. One of the things that we that we get out of the circulation map, we generate policies and programs. And one of the programs that we are actively working on is safe routes to school. And then a lot of that comes to engagement too. How do we communicate? Let's say we do move forward with this map or propose improvements, it's not only just adopting that and moving forward with the construction, but also making sure we communicate that to the community and include them in that conversation as well to make sure, hey, this is how you use a crosswalk. Hey, this is what you should wear at night for right. We could, and also, how do we find a way to communicate to the majority of the population that does walk our streets for the most part because maybe they don't have transportation? How do we help with increasing public transportation throughout Soledad? I know we just improved our circulator bus throughout Soledad, so it's active and it loops around Soledad. So maybe residents don't know that that exists. So how do we engage those conversations with the community and let them know what we're doing and how they can make those changes? And so the policies and programs will be coming after based on the proposed approved circulation and land use map. And that's really where we get to assess, okay, this is our circulation map. Does this program really fit to that? And that is the information that will be generated after we have a good accepted circulation map.
And as long as they're open to change or improvements, because I did bring up the speed bump
Mhm.
thing, and the city engineer told me that they don't really work. One of the comments was they don't work because people don't slow down for them. It's like, well, that's the point. If they mess up their car,
Yeah.
then they'll learn. But then he said, well, then it just shifts the traffic to another street. So yeah, it's very difficult, which then the stop sign or a street light comes into play. But
Mhm.
the other issue that I noticed with the map of the 90 some accidents in the past few years were all at intersections with stop signs. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
it's
we've now that
job, but
yeah, now with the improvements on Front Street, we also got that feedback about why did you put more stop signs on Front Street? And it's really a give and take situation, right? And in the case for Front Street, it's like, okay, do we reduce parking spaces so that we're complying with state laws regarding visibility intersections to make sure that cars going to and from intersections can see? Or should we make stop signs so that the parking spaces stay there and we don't affect the local businesses on Front Street? So it's the traffic engineers do assess those situations and also see how, what improvements are good at that time as well.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and again, like Ariana mentioned, all of this is a baseline. It doesn't mean that other projects cannot happen or other solutions cannot happen. This is pretty much like this is the minimum that we can do, but we also can talk about programs. Can talk about policies that are not necessarily the exact intersection that it's listed on this map, but that can actually benefit the bigger community or the
Mhm.
neighborhood.
and the last thing I'll say, which I'm going to bring it up to the city council, but I'll mention it here too, is the entrance exit. I know you said that you guys heard it, but what I heard at the traffic forum was in the past, old studies, and I understand it costs money and you have to work with these agencies who may not want to work with us.
Mhm.
But I feel, and the message to the city council at their next meeting is going to be, I don't think we should not try. We should continue to try because again, the Miramonte, was it 2,000 homes?
Mhm.
To me, that's at least 4,000 cars. I know they said they're going to start with maybe 100 homes, but the traffic diet on West, making it one lane, 100 homes, 200 cars at least.
Mhm.
One lane, two schools.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
other entrance exit they should continue to look into that, no matter what it takes, because we
I
can't
think-
just,
I believe I agree with him
Mhm.
because having been caught in that traffic like while the streets were being worked on,
Mhm.
it became very evident that even though we are a small town, we are much more dense than we realize. And when you have to sit and wait in traffic for an hour in Soledad just to get out of town, what if there was some sort of poisonous gas situation? What if something was going to explode? What if people had to evacuate? As I'm sitting there waiting for an hour, I'm seeing people running around everywhere. and trying to figure out where they're gonna go, running around through the schools, and I just kind of decided I actually canceled my appointment and drove around to see what was happening. And I thought, it has to only be these streets.
Mhm.
Every single street was backed up for at least 45 minutes. So this is a really serious problem that really needs to be addressed in regards to exits and entrances,
Mhm.
because if something were to happen, if, chaos were to happen in today's environment, if some kind of military action were brought into our city, I don't know what would happen, because just with the traffic, people were swearing at each other and people were upset, and they were, you know, doing dangerous maneuvers to just try and cut in front of everybody. It
Mhm.
was a very, very, if you weren't sitting in that traffic, then you don't understand how serious it was.
Mhm.
And that's what I mean by the human
Yeah.
factor. You have traffic control, you have
Yeah.
flaggers, but
Mhm.
people are gonna make a U-turn or try to find another way out.
Mhm.
And I hope I'm not coming off as criticizing, because
No.
again, I don't know what city engineers know. I don't have their education, but whatever I can do to, suggest or help, or I think the biggest thing is to get more people to the meetings.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I think that's the basis of why we're reviewing this, right?
Mhm.
Because yes, we can provide stuff on a technical aspect and state law compliance, but at the end of the day, you as Soledad planning commissioners understand the community and the local network more than maybe some of the staff. I know I'm from Salinas,
Mhm.
but I work here and I can see some of these issues, but you can relate to them more because you live here, right? And I think that's what we're presenting and doing this process to the planning commission to make sure that based on the feedback that we received is similar to what you've heard throughout the community as well. And maybe more than what we captured during that community engagement that we may not have looked on or we didn't hear on our end. Mhm.
And again, like I said, I want to echo what they just shared,
Mhm.
because I don't think it necessarily needs to be something dramatic that happens for chaos to happen.
Yeah.
Just in Salinas a couple of weeks ago, there was one car accident that hit a pole and it backed up traffic for miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that's in a bigger, town where there's more roads, more accessibility. So yes, at one point when I first started here, Miramonte project was an idea,
Mhm.
and it's slowly, happening. So I don't see how that cannot happen, for the exits, because
Mhm.
that's a critical component for safety,
Mhm.
for the growth of the city, for the flow of the traffic. I think beyond any of these roundabouts, any of these roads, would make wonders for all the city would be the exits.
Mhm. Mhm.
And just for point of clarification for myself, again, I'm not an expert either. However, I'm just trying to grasp a lot of this information,
Mhm.
with you having, being spearheading this, as we're going through this information and we're discussing what's going on with the land use, etc. But I think a big piece for just a lot of people that know I'm on the board, they want to know what's going on. They want to know, um, as commissioner was saying, that the safety is a huge piece.
Mhm.
And we're setting, from what I understood, was we're setting a baseline, right, of goals to meet so we can check off the boxes. So we send in our reports, it's check, check, check. However,
Mhm.
coming from, a financial industry and come from an educational foundation, normally you set the goals higher
Mhm.
and the standard higher to ensure that what if we can meet those, yippee yahoo yay, we went above and beyond. But to state somewhere minimally, this is what
Mhm.
we will provide versus just setting a minimum standard of
Mhm.
checking the boxes,
Mhm.
because then we run into, I think, future issues
Mhm.
of, what we're talking about right
Mhm.
now. So I guess a question I have, are we setting just minimum standards, or do we have a ladder of standards that we can meet, that baseline by such and such, we should have this, but in the future
Mhm.
we hope to, and maybe we under promise but over deliver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that relates to the program and policies portion of the general plan, where yes, this is meeting our minimum baseline, but the programs and policies is really what we're checking off. Where, you know, hey, the city wants to, again, going back to safe to school routes, because I think that's the one that kind of sticked with me with the programs, is like the city will work on extensive engagement with our schools and maybe having a collaborative effort between the school district and the city and public works to see how we can minimize school traffic. That is a program that, let's say it'll be done by 2030 during the range of this general plan. That's where we set those goals and milestones and how we can achieve up to more standards. So that this is setting the baseline for those programs and policies. So again, if these are the intersection, these are the issues that we want to fix. The programs and policies is going to show us how are we going to do it, the timeline that we're going to do it, and then the APR reports that we bring around March time, I believe, that shows kind of like a recap of the year. That is when us as staff, we have to report to you about what have we accomplished for these intersections, what have we accomplished for these programs and policies, or why isn't staff meeting those deadlines. A lot of it could be due to funding. A lot of it could be due to maybe staff shortage or not. It really just depends when that goal is set and how we stand as staff and as a city.
And it's a little bit of a delicate balance because when we have very ambitious projects on the general plan and we are not meeting those expectations, then we also cut ourselves short when looking for grants. So I think the general plan is kind of like our bigger map where we want to show the state that we're making progress and that we are addressing the issues that we have at a very big picture so that when we are seeking funding opportunities, we can have a compliant general plan that will make us competitive for those grants. It's finding the balance where we want to make sure that we address the issues that we have and that we're working towards that, but at the same time that we don't set a goal that may be unlikely to happen, because then all of your staff time is going to be going after maybe having that highway and the new highway entrance. And if we don't do that and we're not in compliance with our general plan, then that's preventing us from accessing other sources of funding. So we want to work in that direction, but also we don't want that far goal to be a limitant when working in kind of like stages. Like, how do we go into stepping stones where our goals are measurable and that we can make progress and say to the state or to other funders, and that way we are also gradually making progress. It's not that we want to just do the bare minimum. It's more that we want to make sure that we stay within compliance and that we continue to be competitive for funding opportunities and that we have enough staff time to actually pursue those grant opportunities to bring new projects and new programs.
Yeah, and usually that's a great point too, because usually when we apply for these grants, they want to make sure that it's something that we see it feasible within the city. And by that, they're going to look at our general plan. So they're going to rely on, and we're going to rely on that too, saying, look, it's in our general plan. It's been adopted. This is what we want to do. When it comes to the highway or the ramp improvements or the exit, I think it's been part of the 2005 general plan, and it's something that we still continue to move forward for the next general plan as an ultimate goal to say it's under our goals and policies that the city should look funding. And we're actively looking for funding because not only because of that event, but we know that there is a need for an additional entrance and exit to Soledad.
Thank you.
Okay. And before we move forward with the second part of the presentation, any further questions on the circulation map or anything you'd like to get clarified on that? Or okay. Okay. So similarly, this land use map, the same concept about this is what we want to do and what to meet based on the needs. We have change the land use designation as an overall concept of the land use map. We felt that the existing land use map designations were very limiting to what we can do throughout town. As a point of clarification too, this land use map will eventually shape our zoning code, which will then shape what you can or cannot do on your property. So thinking more broad about the land uses allowed throughout town will allow us to be more flexible of what you can or cannot build in specific areas of town. So we're providing different land use designations, and we'll go in review of each one of what they really mean and what it was before and how we're interpreting now based on the feedback we got from the community based on the priorities. A brief summary, again, these are the main points that we got throughout this engagement process, including the alternative stage, is a completed consistency analysis to reconcile on the ground uses with general plan designation. So we wanted to make sure that whatever can be built really matches the general plan land use, because we were seeing a lot of misconnections throughout town. That is, it's like you go to a part of town and it's like, oh, well, this looks more like multifamily use or a mixed use center, and somehow, some way it has it as a single family zoning district, and it just doesn't match the area that it's at. So we looked at that too. Looked at vacant sites throughout city to identify areas for denser housing, commercial, and mixed use. We know we are in a housing crisis and we have to meet specific number of units through our regional housing needs allocation. And we got a lot of feedback that we have some vacant lots throughout land. How can we maximize that space? Because we cannot create more land, right? So we have to work with what we have to make sure we not only provide the number of housing units that were required, but we also provide a balance of commercial uses throughout. We also receive feedback in expanded neighborhood and regional commercial areas. So how can we, again, be more flexible with our existing uses, make it more general, more flexible, that allows us to have additional uses within existing zoning. Separate public facility, parks, and open space designations. So sometimes when reading land use map, people were confused about, okay, what's the difference between public facilities and open space? Open space is really more like the ag land, whereas public facility and parks are also designated separately because they're different types of uses. And then, as I mentioned, we added new land use designations that made it easier to understand what they mean when you're reading them. When we presented this information to the General Plan Steering Committee, they were confused of what each land use designation meant. And as staff, we want to make sure the map provided the terms mean what they are, right? And I think the verbiage or the terms that were proposed at the beginning were very too technical to understand what that really meant. Within the staff report, we provided, and with that feedback, they wanted a kind of a sheet showing those definitions, because why are we going to show a map without really knowing how it looks like and what it means? So we provided that in the staff report, and we'll go through them individually. So one of the new designations is traditional neighborhood, which was before single family residential. These established neighborhoods include primarily detached single-family homes, accessory dwelling units, and small multifamily structures. Supporting uses include schools, neighborhood serving parks, community centers, and places of worship. So in our existing land use map, which is primarily throughout Soledad, is single-family residential. Right now, we're changing it to traditional neighborhood to be more flexible of the type of uses that can participate in those zoning districts. And as we mentioned, some of these can have a mix of neighborhood parks and housing, or it could have centers of worship that are in the same zoning or land use, but it's just allowing more flexibility of that name to make sure you understand it's not only single family homes, it can be more things. And then throughout the presentation of each designation, I think the goal or the feedback that we're looking from the Planning Commission is if really that designation makes sense and where it's placed. So we can always look back at the map. as you can see, traditional neighborhood is primarily throughout Soledad, and it's included in the yellow areas of Soledad. That's where you would find traditional neighborhood areas. The new designation we are proposing is the blended residential neighborhood, which was before medium density residential. Right now, this is an area that has a mix of housing types that includes duplexes, triplexes, small apartment buildings, courtyards, townhomes, and also supports uses including schools, neighborhood serving parks, community centers, and again, places of worship. So it allows more of just typical, your typical neighborhood, allowing a mix of uses that, there's a church next to homes. In this case, it's more dense housing. And before it was considered just medium density residential. Again, I think what staff and PlaceWorks is working on is to make sure we allow for more flexible uses throughout neighborhoods, but still keeping the same component that it is a denser area, rather than with different types of uses rather than just housing. The other designation we renamed was multifamily neighborhood, which was before high density residential. These areas feature apartment buildings large enough to support on-site community spaces such as playgrounds, gardens, neighborhood parks, and commercial districts nearby along major roads. And I think one of the examples of this would be the Vista Point towards San Vicente Road. We would consider that area right there or in the parcel multifamily neighborhood, where you see the major road of San Vicente and multifamily units as well. And maybe other areas. I think we're proposing, going back to the map, multifamily neighborhood. Other areas like the Santa Clara Parcel E, which is closer to the end town of Soledad. The other new designation is a neighborhood center. We propose this new designation to kind of include commercial uses and a mix of housing at the same time. Whether you have small shopping centers and commercial, residential on top, creates kind of like a social hub for nearby residents as well. So buildings are encouraged to provide retail, dining, and service uses on ground floors with residential above, and horizontal mixed use with offices, personal services, and small scale retail. Sorry, it wasn't housing, but it was retail, small scale retail on top. So it creates these hubs. And I think one of the areas that we are intending to implement this type of neighborhood center, it's towards the middle of Soledad, where we don't see a lot of commercial activity or areas available that can be reachable for nearby neighborhoods. So another one would be on the corner of, I believe it's Gabiland and San Vicente. There's an empty lot right in front of Frank Ledesma where the carnival is hosted. Looking at spaces like corner markets where we can provide these shopping centers for nearby neighborhoods, as a goal to have them have resources closer to them and not go towards the south end of town. Then we go into the bigger land use designations. This one is particularly the Northern Gateway. This is intended as an attractive entry to the city of Soledad, which offers a variety of commercial and service-related services that cater to both local and regional customers. In this case, we're focusing more towards the entrance of the north side of town, establishing a land use for that, more of a shopping center for not only locals, but also those that are around the region. As we also heard, Soledad has the capacity, especially since some of that land is within city limits, to develop a good commercial shopping center or some type of development in the north entrance, since that part is within city limits. So establishing its own land use designation to pretty much prioritize that in our general plan allows us to create programs and policies to make that happen. Then we focus on the southern gateway. This designation accommodates a wide variety of commercial and light industrial facilities that serves residents and visitors surrounding the region. I think some of the feedback that we got is not only how do we serve our local population, but we have the Pinnacles National Park near to us and an entrance that is much closer for this side of the state to access through Soledad. How do we capture them in their needs, such as hotels, restaurants, amenities, and so on. So the intention was to focus that designation closer to the south end of town where we could potentially find connections to the 146 as an easier route. Again, providing theaters, banks, large format retails, travel related services such as gas stations, hotels, and restaurants, and distribution facilities. Some of the updated land use designation, as we mentioned, is parks and open space. This land use provides a flexible designation for publicly and privately owned active recreation areas. Parks can range from neighborhood, tot lots to large multi-purpose sports facilities and many active recreation uses in between. And I'll go back to the map so that we can now, we understand what they mean. We can look really at where they're designated. So as we mentioned, majority of Soledad is what we know right now as single family homes. We are changing that to traditional neighborhood to not only include homes, but also include churches that we see a lot throughout or places of worship here in Soledad. Blended residential neighborhood is really a mix of both duplexes or single family homes or triplexes that you can see towards the south end of town by Palm Avenue. Multifamily neighborhood areas are your densest areas with higher density. Some of these include Las Viviendas and a lot above Orchard Lane Park that is also designated as multifamily neighborhood. And then, as we mentioned, something exciting that I think Soledad was trying to pursue, again, based on the feedback, was how do we revitalize our downtown? We make a specific land use designation just for downtown that then it will create its own type of uses of what you can or cannot have within the downtown district. And also enforcing the downtown specific plan. I think one of the connections that we are trying to prioritize is to make sure the downtown specific plan has more connection within the general plan, and we follow that vice versa, whether it's a downtown specific plan or the general plan. We want to make sure we mirror the same policies that can be of benefit to the activity of downtown. As I mentioned, we also have the neighborhood center, which is that lot over there by Gavilan Drive in San Vicente, allowing a mix of retail services, gas stations, and small scale office space, which we also heard that is really needed for professional services. And then we talked about the northern gateway at the north end of town. That's where the land use designation is proposed, whereas the southern gateway, which is towards Nestles Road by the Soledad Marketplace. One idea that staff proposed and PlaceWorks proposed too was right now, that area over there is underutilized. It's industrial, but is that really something the city wants to keep moving forward with, right? So with this southern gateway, it allows a flexibility of light industrial uses with the flexibility of commercial activity, which I think gives the option to developers that want to come in, whether it's industrial or commercial. We have that land available for those proposed uses. Obviously, analyzing it based on each project, we would then make sure that project is appropriately to the location in Soledad as well. So we want to provide that flexibility that not only is this industrial, but we're allowing commercial activity there as well. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting thoughts that staff is presenting tonight, because we want to, as I mentioned, you can't create new land. So you have to work with really what you have to not only provide those services for the community, but really how are we going to increase economic development for the town as a whole. Then we identified during the steering committee, they wanted public facilities to really be identified within the land use map to make sure and distinguish that it is a public facility, including schools and our medical centers. So that's something that we highlighted in the light blue. And then the industrial section will, due to the Southern Gateway, is minimized. We're still keeping some of the industrial portion in Soledad, but it is minimized towards the opposite side of Nestles Road and closer to the winery at the 146. And we do have some agriculture within the city limits. Therefore, we do have a land use specifically for agriculture as well. And then with that, I'll make a pause here to see if there's any questions, clarifying questions on the proposed land uses.
I mean,
With the downtown specific plan
Mhm.
that's identified here in pink, does that go on the other side of the railroad track or it does?
So that designation is proposed to go, right now, it doesn't. It is proposed to go on the other side of the railroad track. We see that again, that land is vacant right now. So for us, we want to see, okay, if we designated downtown, what are the possibilities of us to do something with that land? We do have to collaborate with the Union Pacific Railroad to obviously get access through that, and how do we do that safe in a safe way. But I think thinking about how can we plan for that in the future is what we're trying to propose in the land use map for development.
you think they'd move their tracks over?
That would be, yeah.
But actually, my wife and I were talking about that, and it's like, well, the train goes too fast. It's not safe.
Mhm.
But we've been to other places down south, Oceanside, and we've gone to their huge street market,
Mhm.
and we didn't notice, like, we're crossing the train tracks. They have the not Amtrak. It's like their local
Mhm.
like BART type thing. And it's like, well, there's a beach there, so people crossing constantly, and it's okay, but there's no stops here, so of course they're not gonna slow down. But maybe that would be something if when they get close to Soledad, slow it down a bit, and then which I know that won't work either because they're on timelines, but
Oakland has some very vibrant areas, and they have the railroads like are going in between them. They've built like break walls or something, and then on either side are these really cool businesses. One is a restaurant that I like to go to called Nido, and then on the other side I haven't gone, but I know there are other, general use type commercial businesses on that side, and they made it work. So I think just having more of a conversation. I think part of it is actually going out to places to go see what that looks like, to come back and talk to the collaborators that you're talking to and say, hey, it was done over here. Precedent has been set. We just need to find out what the cost is and how it would impact our city. So
Yeah, and within our downtown specific plan, during the time it was created, I think the idea for that part of town was to have a train stop at one point. And that allowed to also create more energy throughout downtown, right? You have a train stop, people maybe they want to grab some snacks before their next train ride, they want to shop local here, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe that's a vision we want to carry forward, but with this downtown designation, we're trying to focus on uses like that will bridge that economic development in downtown, whether maybe it is that. And that's where we'll get again into the programs and policies or the goals about what we want to do with each type of designation and what are we proposing that is feasible for the city when it comes again to funding and so on. And realistically, how is maybe an agency like Union Pacific able to collaborate with us on something like that? Because we unfortunately don't own that land, but we still have to make that connection with them and see really, are they willing to do that? Mhm,
I would look into the city of Fresno.
mhm,
The railroad goes right through the middle of the city.
mhm,
Hanford, for a small city, they have, if we're looking at a smaller destination city, being Soledad, right? Hanford is a small little city, a great place to just go stop, Superior Dairy. But you can take the train down there, right? And it's a cool thing. We went from Fresno to Hanford on the train, hung out at the dairy, went to see the museum stuff. It's a small little town, hopped back on the train and came back home. So if we could start doing something like that as well,
mhm,
Salinas has their stop there right at downtown. Steinbeck Center is just down the way.
mhm,
So it's not that it hasn't been done. It's just,
mhm,
what are we willing to do, I think.
Yeah, and we have been monitoring their, because similar as we do our general plan, they also have to do their plan of what they plan to do in the next few years. So we have been in conversations and we have been trying to align some of our planning with their planning. It's still really early, and I think King City has made a lot more progress than ourselves, or they started a conversation before we did. So it's definitely something that we try not to lose sight of. It may not be in the near future as we want to, but we need to start planning for that as they're also planning for it and aligning our plans.
mhm,
I know if we're able to get across that rail track and we're talking about another exit points, to get on the freeway, maybe having an on-ramp going north,
mhm,
right, in the middle on by Front Street
mhm,
would also make it ideal, at least if we can make another exit, where we want it, right?
mhm,
So maybe there going over the rail tracks, you're able to get an on-ramp going north at least.
mhm. Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things that can restrict us when it comes to just development, because I think if we want circulation or to go that way, we're going to think, okay, how are we going to develop the rest of the nearby surrounding land? Um, in this case, if we want to go, I guess, the other side of the 101, or through the 101, I think we have an agreement with the county or whatnot that all our improvements and development are only towards the east side of the 101. So if anything, we would continue expanding entrance or exits towards the east side of where Soledad is, and not focus on improvements on the other side of the 101 due to the mutual agreement of protecting prime ag land on the other side of the freeway.
Yeah, one
Mhm.
particular case, I guess what I'm saying is like, for example, I don't know, Main Street,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just connecting that to the 101
Mm-hmm.
and just having a way to go north. It wouldn't be ideal to go south, right? Because then there would be more, bridge or something like that.
Yeah.
But going north, at least you could have another similar to what we have in the south part of the town
Mm-hmm.
for individuals that are going north, where there's an on-ramp
Mm-hmm.
somewhere there.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely pass that feedback and see what
Again, ideally,
Mhm.
the best case scenario, it would be developing the the entrance or an additional entrance where we ideally would want it,
Mhm.
but it seems like there's a lot of red tape to go through that. So this might be not the best solution, but at least an
We can
additional
explore it.
exit point.
Yeah.
I think a quick Band-Aid might be lengthening the on-ramp lane. So that, cause you kind of get bottlenecked getting onto the highway, but if they made that longer, you'd have pretty much 3 lanes for a mile or so, maybe the traffic flowing on, but
Mhm.
yeah. So another question, regarding the land use,
Mhm.
the, I'm gonna use the wrong term, or traditional neighborhood,
Mhm.
or blended, any of those residential areas. Is there any way to make those like, residential commercial? Or was that one of the,
That is one of the, I believe it was neighborhood center.
Yeah.
I can go back
which
to
I don't
the
think anybody would want to tear down their house and build a shopping center, but I mean, that area in the top
Excuse me.
right of the map,
Mhm. Yeah.
That would be perfect for a shopping center, but you know, it's,
Which side?
Private.
Sorry.
oh, it's private land.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you would capture all of Miramonte.
Yeah.
Everyone from Gavilan up.
Yeah, the neighborhood center is the one that has a mix of commercial uses within traditional neighborhood areas. And I think you're focusing more on the mixed use.
Okay.
That's a designation that we're working on within downtown to have commercial space on the bottom and housing on top. So that's an option that we wanted to bring towards downtown too, because people living in downtown can create that activity and bring in more activity in Soledad itself.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that neighborhood center, I think if the way I think about it is those little markets throughout the neighborhoods that you can walk to get salt, go get your oil because you don't want to go to grocery outlet across town, right? So those are the new pockets, what we call pocket marts there, which is on the corner of Gavilan and San Vicente, and then also Orchard Lane and Gavilan as a way to provide those services within the core of Soledad.
One last question, actually. You
Mhm.
mentioned Gavilan and San Vicente, that empty lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is that owned by the city or is that private?
No, it's private land. Right now it's the zoning district. So um and I'll clarify a little bit right now on that. This land use map will influence our zoning district. So the specific uses will come from this. Right now that empty lot is zoned commercial, community commercial, which allows more of a, yes, a bigger standard shopping center, but we believe that changing it to a neighborhood center allowed it to be more easier to understand and become familiar with, because it's like, no, it's actually like a little mart, like Gavilan Plaza, where it's located by residential zoning areas.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So then
Mm-hmm.
just to, and then, well, I guess not clarify, but essentially all these new designations, proposed designations, like you said, would allow for the ease of doing different things.
Yes, so this is the general definition of those areas. Staff, after, if this is something Planning Commission recommends to the City Council to adopt and it formally gets certified, we as staff will then work on the individual uses that will be approved. So in traditional neighborhoods, single family residences will be approved, obviously with property development standards. Churches will be approved in that area, and it'll be just kind of bulleted down of the specific uses that are being approved through this land use. So from the land use, we get our zoning code, and that's really what we'll be enforcing. Mhm. And one of the things to, you know, bring it back to the big picture item of the general plan is, you know, this is the information we received from the community engagement. Like, we wanted to focus on downtown. Okay, let's focus on a land use designation just for downtown that allows us to be flexible in what we can or cannot do, and implement a variety of uses that can create a active downtown. Then focusing on the existing land, what can we do with that land? Well, we want services, right? So we're providing more flexibility, what is currently the industrial sector part of town, and adding more commercial uses so that we can see more opportunities for commercial development. And then the same way with the empty lots in the middle of town that qualify for this type of retail, we're allowing them to be that neighborhood centers. That way we can provide services for those that are within the core of Soledad. All right. I think I went over that slide. Yes. Okay. So the next step, so again, going back to really why does this matter? Why are we looking at this right now? This kind of will define the general plan. We will be creating a full draft general plan based on these land use and circulation efforts that we think we need to meet. And it'll guide the environmental review process, which is a state required, it's called the California Environmental Quality Act that we have to comply with when we create new projects, in this case, a new general plan. By knowing what type of land uses we want and what improvements we want, it'll guide us to see if we have to prepare for important significant impacts on that end, and what does staff have to do to mitigate those significant impacts to not make sure that we're affecting the existing community, and in making sure we are keeping a sustainable community with these efforts. So that's the environmental review process, and that will also come back to the Planning Commission for review and consideration at a later time once we have a draft general plan. Once we get a full draft general plan, we will also be doing community outreach to continuously have that conversation and get more engagement on the stuff that we're proposing. And all that information will be coming back again to the Planning Commission and City Council for review and consideration for the final general plan certification and approval. And Beatriz mentioned this briefly, our website has all that current information. If anyone in the public is interested to continue the conversation or be engaged, we do have the background information, public engagement opportunities, events and calendar, links to documents. And we work with our community engagement department to try and get this out to the community as much as possible. I think one of the unique things that we have been doing, and we've gotten support by our city manager, is to really have a robust community engagement workshops. And I think that happened during the core of the alternative phase, which led to the land use and circulation maps. And I believe that workshop happened last year in the winter. So it's something that you don't typically see cities do, but it's something that was prioritized for the city itself. And then now, if there's any questions or any points of clarification, we're happy to answer.
I think the only thing I want to say about the circulation map is, as long as it's not like a final thing that's what they're going to do and stick with, as long as they see that there's issues continuing or new issues developing, then make those changes to speed bumps or traffic lights or something else.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Commissioner, given that the focus that was brought up was that, school safety,
Mm-hmm.
school safe walking routes. Granted, AI is a big thing, right? We get it. It makes life a whole lot easier for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
However, as Commissioner stated earlier, the human factor, especially teenagers, all right, and middle schoolers, they don't think. I live right there. I go for walks. They're just all over the place. They come out of school, they're spread out. The high schoolers, same thing. They're just like out there. So I think a big thing is that I understand, just for point of clarification,
Mm-hmm.
on my perspective here, is the proposed new solid land use designations
Mm-hmm.
were fleshed out to ensure there was more flexibility in regards is to not only housing, but city use in regards to bringing more services to the community at large, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, or not, I think all staff and even our consultants felt that our code was very limiting to what we can or cannot do throughout. And having now going through this required general plan update, being flexible with the type of uses, and now seeing how's that going to affect the circulation is something that we really want to capture. And we believe that the proposed circulation map and land uses are in collaboration with each other, right? So, given again, I think the biggest example here is in the downtown area, right? So we created a designation for that. How are we going to meet that? Well, we need to improve that first with making sure we have accessible sidewalks, which we have worked on, but we still want to make sure that continues on throughout the years and not just say, look, we did it, what's next, right? We want to make sure pedestrian safety is enhanced throughout the duration of the general plan, to make sure that those proposed land uses also get done.
I think another thing that I've heard just from different people in the community, and part of it is because being now on the, well, being part of the Soledad Merchants, and then now it's the Soledad Chamber, you know, I interface with a lot more people.
Mhm.
And so they're like, oh, well, how come we didn't hear about this? Or how come we didn't hear about that? And some of the more savvy people were like, we understand that there's a circle of influence that they have to address. However, the message has been that, is there a way to expand that circle of influence for people to be more aware of what's going on? Because sometimes the people who are within that, I don't know how many square footage, you know, that's required, may not be as engaged as the people right outside of that circle. And I think that was something that, I'm not sure if that's something that can be addressed or if that's just a state requirement, but I know has been brought up to me multiple times by different people and people I don't even know. So, hey, what about this and what about that? Not truly angry, but just kind of like disturbed
Mhm.
of the fact that something very close to their home or their business was being done and they were not aware of it. So communicating with the community at large, maybe trying to make something more available publicly for people,
Mhm.
to be able to really put input, because I know that a lot of people are still, well, you know, how do I find out about this? And
Mhm.
they're like, well, the website. And they're like, yeah, but the city should be trying
Mhm.
to do something more to let us know what's going on. Everybody's got lives. We're working, we have kids. You know, we're not going to sit down and go, oh, every night, what's the city going to be doing?
Yeah.
And that was the comment that was made to me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I'll bring it to our table the next time I come in. And so I felt that was important as we're doing this and building out.
Mhm.
Yeah, and hopefully we're improving our communications. I know it's been a lot of work in progress, and for the last year or so, they have really focused in social media. I think we have improved, but I know that not everybody is on social media. So I think we definitely need to diversify it and attend tailor to our audience. Yes, we do have a lot of young people in our community, and actually we have received a lot of good engagement through our social media. So we're happy to see that community engagement has made progress, but you're right. We need to diversify how we communicate to people. And more recently, I think over the last 2 months, we have been collaborating more closely with the school district so that they can use their parent squared. So that's been good in the last, maybe more like, it's been in the works for a couple of months, but the last month we have been using it a little bit more. So, but you're definitely right, a more comprehensive outreach plan to tailor to the different populations in our community. It's definitely needed, especially with some of the things we do it in a daily basis, that even though at least when I started, my background is more in housing. When I started in housing, I heard people say so many acronyms that I promised to myself that I wasn't going to be those people. And then I don't know what the acronym stands for. If you tell me to spell it out, I became those people. So I think we need to also be aware that even when we don't realize it, we jump into the technicalities, and it's not average vocabulary for citizens that are capable of understanding what we're doing if we just make it relevant to what they experience on a daily basis. But yeah, we can definitely work with a community engagement department.
Yeah, because I do see like opportunities. You're saying, you know, the school district, you're going to reach a large mass, but you know, I'm thinking of things that we used to do in Fresno. You know, we had a regular spot on Radio Bilingüe. The Latino radio stations gave us public time. You know, the senior housing, that would be something, you know, where notices could go out to the senior housing development areas, to the low income, I know they have general public information that they need to share with their clients and, you know, the people that live in the housing communities, just to make sure. And I think the toughest community to reach is the working community.
Mhm.
And those are the ones that are the most vocal when things are done. And then they're like, well, I didn't know about this,
Yeah.
right? And so how can we reach that population? And that and it's, you know, maybe it is, you know, some community airtime on television. I think those people, that group of people of the community tend to, you know, watch more television, right? You know, getting onto something where there's, you know, doesn't cost as much in regards is to building something to get onto the community via the public platforms. There are the weekly,
Mhm.
the weeklies right there at the bakery. Pretty much everybody runs through the bakery at least
Mhm.
once a week.
Yeah.
You know, the different stores even having maybe the weekly placed in different areas with that information. You know, now we've got Panda, you know, what's a different way of
Mhm.
doing it? Just thinking about those things.
Yeah, and I think that those points are good at this well, throughout the entire process of this general plan, but we are reaching to a critical point where we're developing a draft plan that is really getting ready to be accepted and approved. And you know, I think similarly as a planning commission, the city council will definitely want to know what outreach has been done. And I think staff can definitely work on that comprehensive outreach plan to see how do we market this out to the community to make sure if they know about this, and then if they're interested, how are they participating or how are we capturing them? So we can definitely take that feedback back to our consultants and
And I think it's
Mhm.
critical, like she mentioned, because we have workshops, 3 people show up, and then
Mhm.
for forever we're referencing that workshop and that we got feedback from the
Mhm.
community, and it was 3 individuals that showed up.
Right.
So definitely getting the community more involved. I'm at a stage in my life where I live sports, right? So I take my kids to all these sporting events. So I know, like on Sunday mornings, the soccer games, hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Right. So at Main Street, there's or the Little League games or softball games, hundreds of
Mhm.
people there with their kids. So that would be another avenue to potentially target the working parents that can't come during the week.
Mhm.
But yeah, I agree with wanting to have more input from the community, because we have these workshops, these events for the community, and a few people show up, and now we take that as this is represents everybody.
Mhm.
We got the feedback from the community, and there was 2 people at the workshop, and it tends to be the same people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think actually accessing the churches, I know we have a very active church population, you know, and being able to collaborate with, you know, the churches and saying, hey, you know, there's information out here. We want to engage your community at large. You know, we have at least 5 large churches, possibly 6 in the community that I'm aware of. And if we were to tap and build a relationship with the pastors and you know, the priests, I think that they would be more than happy to open up an evening where, you know, their churchgoers would be more than happy to attend an evening. I mean, they'll come just for worship and it's packed, you know, in the middle of Tuesday night. And, you know, in certain of the you know, religious systems, you know, they're used to having a Wednesday night meeting. They're used to having a Tuesday night meeting, Thursday night. So just looking at those things. And then of course Hartnell,
Mhm.
you know, using that as a basis, or maybe collaborating with them on a meeting, couple of meetings for hitting a lot of the people who are working people and coming out to what they consider a safe environment to meet and hear what it is that we have to share
Mhm.
and get their input.
So going back to the maps
Mhm.
and the land use, what is the objective of today? Today, you want us to
Yeah, so the objective or the direction that staff is trying to get from the planning commission is to recommend to the city council for acceptance of the map for us to continue working towards a final map and environmental analysis and eventually drafting a draft general plan. With that, if recommended, you can make modifications to the circulation and land use map, and that information or the feedback, in addition to the other feedback that we've got, will be presented to the city council, letting them know that this is what the planning commission told us to modify. This is what we did, and this is now what we're presenting to the city council for a formal acceptance. And then the final map will be coming back probably towards the end of this year for review, along with the draft general plan.
So can we start with the circulation map? Robert, do
Mhm.
you have any recommendations, anything, any
I-
additional comments?
I'm thinking, in the spirit of the fact that we're looking at, the land use component being, a flexible model to work with, and we have the MST.
Yeah.
Flexible use.
Mhm.
I think that if we were to accept the draft with the flexibility for any necessary changes that are seen fit, because, I think that we're all kind of, I think, on the same boat. Maybe I am remiss for speaking for all three of us, but what I've been hearing is that, there is some reticence in saying, oh yeah, let's just, rubber stamp it.
Mhm.
And then there's no room for flexibility if something changes,
Mhm.
something's not allowed. Maybe rules change the way things are happening.
Mhm.
So I would be okay with following the same spirit of we need some flexibility on this map
Mhm.
to allow any necessary changes as it's rolled out, massaged, and the final draft is
Mhm.
approved.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd feel a little bit kind of weird about voting on something that
Mhm.
we're growing and we're
Yeah.
shifting. So without
Mhm.
flexibility then you were saying about alignment. So if it's gonna align with what has been presented, then this map should also be flexible.
Mhm. Agreed.
No.
And I think, let me pause on that. And I think before we get deep dive, we did miss a public comment letter that we received from MST. So we should just present it to the planning commission for the record. Mhm. Oh yeah, I think we should open public comment.
Oh.
Yes.
So open public comment.
And given public comment, it's usually 3 minutes. And so the letter was presented to the planning commission, but we'll read off up to the 3 minutes.
Okay, dear Chair Perez Aguilera and Planning Commission, Monterey Salinas Transit District provides public transportation throughout Monterey County and operates fixed route commuter and circulator services in the city of Soledad. MST is happy to see that the city of Soledad advancing its general plan update, and we look forward to collaborating with city staff to ensure safe and accessible modes of transportation are available to Soledad residents. MST has reviewed the draft circulation and land use maps for the 2045 Siempre Soledad general plan update and would like to make the following comments for your consideration. MST Soledad existing services. At the time of this letter, MST's lines 23 serves the city of Soledad at 2 stop locations, Front Street, San Vicente, and H. de la Rosa Mission Center. Line 23 operates daily and hourly with departures from Soledad to Salinas northbound between 6:17 a.m. to 7:29 p.m. on weekdays. Trips to King City southbound also operate on an hourly schedule between 7:04 a.m. and 7:05 p.m. on weekdays. Line 23X is an express route and is available for passengers who travel on weekdays during peak commuting hours. MST collaborated with City of Soledad staff to implement the Line 32, a new fixed route circulator for Soledad. MST installed new bus stops throughout the city, which provide access to downtown Front Street corridor, K-12 schools, Hartnell College, shopping centers, healthcare, and social services. Line 32 offers transit service every 30 minutes on weekdays, from 6:45 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., while providing simple and low-cost transfers for regional travel. Please visit MST's website for more information on lines 23, 23X, and 32, as well as the most recent schedules. Soledad's General Plan 2045 Draft Circulation Map. 86% of MST passengers walk, bike, or scooter to access the bus. For this reason, MST is happy to see that bike, pedestrian, and intersection improvements highlighted throughout the draft circulation map. MST would like to respectfully request that MST be a major stakeholder for the proposed circulation improvements outlined in the draft circulation map project on transit routes and around any bus stop should be carried out in consultation with MST staff to ensure the American with Disabilities Act and transit design standards are met. Please refer to MST's designing
There we go. The gist of it.
Is there anyone in the gallery who would like to see it another 3 minutes so we could hear the rest of it?
I don't know.
Somebody else take
I
another
guess.
3 minutes.
Or it can be through the chair if the chair thinks it's.
I think we read it, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's been here. I was looking at it before, we went up there.
Mhm.
So do I close for the comment?
I don't think there's any more.
Okay, closing, public comment.
Mhm. Now we can go into discussion.
Well, I think it's important. We were just talking
that
about
it?
the flexibility of the map, so.
Mhm.
And working with them. I know my father-in-law rides the bus from Watsonville into town. So, and my stepson, when he was still living, he would utilize the bus all the time, back and forth to Salinas, to the transit, and then to Monterey where he worked. And also, I don't know if you guys know that we've actually come up on a couple of YouTube people who decide to travel across the valley utilizing just public transportation.
Mm.
And we were one of the stops. And Manuel and I found it by accident. We were watching it and I'm like, wait, is he talking about dry? And he was. So he was taking the transit all the way into Paso from San Francisco. So this was one of the stops that he came to. So, he was recommending the stop and he made some recommendations about, it was kind of cool that it stopped right here by the shopping center, etc. And he was able to stop because it's not that far from Pinnacles. It would be great if there was one that would like stop at
Yeah.
Pinnacle. That was one that he talked about. And then the other one was that it was great for the price and the passes. And so he did an up and day trip. He said the only thing that he didn't like was that it ended so early, right?
Mm.
But we are making the map on
Mhm.
different people actually talking about Soledad, using us as a stop. And I think it's very important that MST be part of that process.
Yeah, no, and to that point too, I think previously the visitor center in Front Street, now the Soledad Gateway Center, given that we have the Pinnacles right behind us, attracts that visitor population, not only for the Pinnacles, but also just to, hey, there's a national park, let's see what's there, right? And then, if I'm not mistaken, Soledad is really the halfway point between San Francisco and I believe it's LA too, somewhere along those lines. So it creates really a big halfway point that I think as a city we're prioritizing and taking that to our advantage throughout this process. And it comes to a good timing as we're developing policy, we're updating our general plan to make sure we mirror that in those programs and policies that will be coming later at a later time.
And I know that we don't run the state parks, but maybe looking at somebody who has property nearby, is trying to sell it, doesn't know what to do, opening up some camping on this side. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they're one percenters out of the Sacramento Valley. they were trying to plan a camping trip out here to go to the Pinnacles. And on the Hollister side, I guess there was no propane, no open flames, nothing at this point because of
Oh,
the time.
mhm.
So they canceled their trip and they were gonna bring 6 different people. And we were gonna be, there was a total of a group of 8 people who were trying to come to the Pinnacles, but couldn't make it. And they're like, there's nothing on the side. And they ended up, they're gonna go leave their money over in Sonoma now. So, so just thinking about those things, people are looking at us that have disposable income, which was, I think, a big portion of what we're doing and why we're doing the updates. And we need to continue to keep that in mind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is this a
So coming
condition?
back to the circulation map, I think, Robert, do you have any
Is
comments?
this a
Any-
condition we would set for UST? Sorry, or
Mhm.
Because this is a public comment, so you will just accept the public comment. If you have a comment triggered by that letter, you're welcome to do that as
Oh,
your
well-
commissioner comment.
because they're asking to be a part of the process.
And they have been.
Mhm.
Like, is that a condition we would set?
I think we can, recommend. So going back to the programs and policies, I think a goal in general would be, prioritizing sustainable transportation efforts. And a program could be collaborating with our local MST. That is something that we can look towards implementing as the list goes, as we generate that list. So I think if I understood the public comment from MST is that they like that we're prioritizing pedestrian and also just circulation or being more active on that end in our circulation map, then that allows us to implement those programs and policies, including MST in the process. Mhm.
And sorry, then as far as the circulation, I mean, honestly, I think there's no perfect fix. Which is why I said, as long as it's flexible, if,
Mhm.
for instance, the crosswalk next to
Mhm.
the high school doesn't work out, maybe put the stop sign back or
Mhm.
speed bumps or something, or
Yeah. And I think given to that point, once we presented first the steering committee the first draft of this map, everything was very set to the point. It said, oh yeah, crosswalk here, crosswalk there. And one of the flexible changes that we made from that feedback, they're like, well, why not over here? Or why are we proposing just a crosswalk there? It's like, let's just do it in general where we're proposing a a safety improvement. And I think that's where the icons come in, that it talks about, I think it's, there's proposed intersection and then proposed improvement. And improvement can mean a variety of things. And as I mentioned, that those where they're identified can be analyzed independently at a specific time to see what improvement is adequate for that area there. Mm-hmm.
and the city engineer was right, with the traffic lights and more stop signs, it's gonna make traffic go to other streets.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're gonna have issues there, and it's an
Mhm.
ongoing thing, no easy fix, but
Mhm.
And I think we all agree that it's gonna be evolving, right? Especially once Miramonte comes on board. We don't know the issues that's gonna bring, right? We kind
Yeah.
of assume where we want our stop signs, the lights, but once we're there, we can make adjustments. So I agree with being flexible portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the comments, and maybe it's not the right setting, but
Mhm.
I would like, city council to hear this would
Yeah.
be, I know you said that the overlapping map that is proposed for Miramonte is kind of, there's a draft already there.
Yeah.
But again, for circulation purposes, I think it would be great if we could have a road that connected San Vicente West and Orchard, similar to Gavilan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would improve circulation drastically.
Okay.
There's no homes are built already, so there's
Yeah.
still, I feel like there's still flexibility in that point there. If there was a road that ran from San Vicente to Orchard, I think it would help circulation overall.
Mm-hmm.
As the development of this project kind of grows.
Mm-hmm.
I picture myself living, up there. And if you live kind of where the mountains at, where the unpaved trails at, how would you get to San Vicente?
Yeah.
right? So that would require you to come down Orchard, take a ride on Gavilan, and then, make your way to the freeway where if you had something that connected those streets, again, similar to Gavilan, I think it would be very effective, very, very,
Mhm.
help the overall picture up here. And like I said, uh, the map is there, but can we move the houses up a little bit and have the road, behind those? I don't know.
And I
Yeah.
think what would, the good thing about that is all this from Entrada up
Mhm.
would avoid the schools in the morning, so
Yes.
they have less traffic around the kids,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
but I mean,
Again,
Yeah.
just a thought for the city
Yeah.
council, as they're looking at the big picture and the general plan is being created for the next 20 years.
Yes.
I think now that there's nothing there yet, making adjustment on paper to a plan, I think it's
Yeah. And yeah, I see. In going back to that project, it's a little complicated, because unfortunately all that was even the street network was approved during that time. Right now, we have the street network and the placement. We're kind of working backwards with that project. Technically, it shouldn't have been approved at that time because a lot of the things are still being worked on. For X reasons, we weren't there during that time. It did. And we're working backwards. So now that we know the placement of Miramonte and their proposed street network, we're trying to see, okay, we're going to have to work with that, and how do we mitigate the impacts throughout Soledad? And they are working on traffic improvements that will eventually do come back this way.
so wasn't the project approved in phases?
So it has an approved vesting tentative map, which is pretty much what lays out the parcels and where it's located. The project itself to move forward with conditions of approval and so on, it got approved as well. The phases of construction and circulation and kind of like the zoning of it, also got approved during the Miramonte specific plan area. But when it comes to specific phases, that's what they're trying to capture now. When it comes to, okay, at what phase do we put in such streets? At what phase do we put in affordable housing? At what phase do we put in the commercial center? That's something that they're finalizing now. So that's what I mean, that the project is kind of working backwards, because technically that phasing or that information should have been thought about first, but unfortunately it is approved how it is now, and now we have to work with that to minimize the impacts as small as possible.
So we're working backwards with PG&E, with the water infrastructure, with the fire department.
So those come in within each phase.
Phase.
Yeah. So main utility lines, that's something that already, so like the main connections have been thought of, and now we're going to the smaller phasing where, okay, now where does this neighborhood get connection from and so on. So in reality, some of it is, still in the works, but the big idea of Miramonte and their placement has been approved, and that's what we need to move forward with. And that's why we didn't add a lot of details to the Miramonte part of the town. We added the main roads that have that approval through that vesting tentative map. So it could be that there's maybe more roads interlined through that big picture, but for right now, those are the main roads that Miramonte needs in order to minimize traffic within that project and Soledad. And then also including the open space trail, because towards where it's more on the hillside on the left side, it's a proposed open space park. It's including an open trail, pedestrian trail, because that use has already been approved and proposed.
I think the other item that we all talked about was, and it's not here, and
Mhm.
again, just making a comment to city council, the need and the want for us to continue pushing to increase an additional exit entrance to the city.
Yeah, we see that it's a definitely need. And I think going back to the policy, the goals, policies, and programs of the general plan is something that we definitely want to highlight and have in case, like Beatriz mentioned, if there is a grant opportunity that we get money for feasibility studies of where we can place this ramp, then we have that as a backup in our general plan saying, look, we thought about this goal, we want to keep this goal, this is the goal right now, therefore we can be more competitive when it comes to grant funding. But I think based on the feedback that just to clarify and make sure we understood the points, is really how can we improve connectivity throughout with Miramonte into existing Soledad, whether that's San Vicente West or Orchard, and we understand that there's work already approved, but what is the option of, improving that connectivity or, on that end, and then being like prioritizing entrance and exits to Soledad in keeping that goal alive throughout this process. And then being flexible in keeping those terms general so that we can really collaborate or not, I guess, connect the land use map and the circulation map and mirror each other. And also engagement throughout this process and presenting that information back to the Planning Commission.
Any additional comments? Roberto?
No. I don't think so.
And as I mentioned, the final, in order to, so this will lead us to a final draft, and that final draft will come back to the Planning Commission once the general plan has been developed. And I think at that point, depending how far we are with that general plan and how big it is, it'll be more like a workshop situation where we can really now go down point by point. In this case, it's a little smaller because once we have a full draft general plan, it's just a lot of content and elements that will have to be introduced.
Is this something we vote on?
We do need a motion. The recommendation is, it is recommended that the Planning Commission of the City of Soledad by minute motion recommend acceptance of the maps and authorize staff to move forward. So if there is a motion, we would make the motion and read the recommendation and in the staff report. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where you can also add that you want staff to add your comments, the 4 comments that we listed, flexibility within the maps, and the growing needs or the changing needs, a better connectivity between existing Soledad and the Miramonte development, and the need to that we need and want to create another freeway entrance and exit, and a robust engagement plan that is diverse. So this, through that motion, you can also incorporate that if you want.
It could, yeah.
That's a lot too.
Yeah.
It's a long one.
Or
yeah.
you could say, it's recommended. I can give you my staff report for the recommendation to read off from with, the feedback discussed at tonight's meeting. If the staff, yeah.
Oh, okay. So instead of better connectivity, the freeway entrance MSC with, sorry, how did you say it?
I said,
Province.
with the feedback presented to staff at tonight's meeting. I think clarifying the points that we just did helps us know what the direction is, and then just making that general motion would be sufficient. But in, yeah.
Alrighty, then. I just lost it. All right. So
So it'd be-
motion to recommend
Mhm.
that the Planning Commission of the City of Soledad by minute option recommend that the City Council of the City of Soledad accept general plan update land use the general plan, update land use and circulation maps as proposed by the city staff, including any changes to the maps recommended today by the commission. And two, authorize staff to proceed with the preparation of the environmental documentation for the general plan update in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act.
And that's sufficient because it's actually part of the motion, so, yeah.
That was my
Mhm.
motion.
Could we add, with feedback presented to staff today
Yeah,
I
it
think
was-
it was including any changes to the maps recommended by today.
by the commission?
Yeah, in the parentheses.
I'll second that.
Mhm.
Vice Chair Segovia,
Yes.
Commission Member Sammy Fuerte,
Yes.
Commission Member Roberto Cruz,
Yes.
Commission Member Lorenzo Sanchez,
Okay, the motion
Oh.
passes.
So what do I say?
The motion passes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
And we're on to item 6, Community and Economic Development Department report.
Yes, thank you. So I'll try, I know it's getting late, but I do have a few things that I would like to report. So the first one is, we met with Commissioner, Sandy, and she brought up a really good point about training for Planning Commission. I don't think we have done that in a long time. Ariana and I are also new to the role, and we are very happy to have people with your level of expertise and your, you do, and the connections that you have within the community. So we definitely need to have some training and work as a team because we do have a very robust development pipeline that is coming online, and we need to make sure that we use all of your expertise and that we come to better solutions and better recommendations. So we will be looking into that. We will be sending, looking at the type of training that is available and sending you some dates. We allocated budget in the next fiscal year for that. And then I'll give you a quick update about some of the projects just in case you are asked by the community. So one of them is the App Bay. So we're getting ready to do the ribbon cutting. That's going to be on June 20th. I'm not sure if you received the formal invitation or not, but on June 20th, we'll do the ribbon cutting at 10 a.m. Senator Caballero will be here, so you're welcome to join the ribbon cutting. The other thing is we just determined the date to date. We recently purchased a workforce housing unit, and that is for mainly to help us recruit first responders. But we have 5 different priorities for workforce for that unit that we purchased from Las Viviendas. The unit was purchased partially with the funding that we received by selling some of the parcels to the school district for the school district project, and also some of the interest that has been gained on the city's capital reserves. So that's how we budgeted for that unit. It's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. We'll have an open house on July 29. We'll send you the formal invitation. We just finalize the date today, but it will be July 29 from 4 to 6 p.m. And you're welcome to join us and just tour the unit. It's a small unit, but I think as we are in a housing crisis, we want to be able to attend to all of the income levels. And it's been hard for the city to retain our management and some of our highly trained employees. So we want to make sure that they also are able to stay local and grow within our community. The other thing is that we have some very nice events in our community. So we're having the night market in collaboration with, it's actually the Chambers that is putting it together. But we have the night market. So I will encourage you to check it out every other Friday. This Friday is the night market. They start at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. And they have a very good selection of vendors. So if you are doing your weekend shopping, that's a great place to start. And then you can go into grocery outlet if you need something else. So that is happening every other Friday. Like I said, this Friday is one of those. And then you can just go every other Friday from here until October. We also have a series of music in the park. That one, the first one is also gonna be this Friday. We didn't realize that the dates were overlapping, but music in the park is only for, it's only 3 times. So the first one will be this coming Friday, and then the second Friday of July, the second Friday of August, which is July 11 and August 7. Or 8, August 8. So we do have the Container Village on Front Street. We have seen some renderings, and we haven't seen a lot of movement, but we have been working on strategies on how to finance the project. Recently, we got direction from council to phase it out. That way, we're able to retain ownership over the property, and we're able to control lease prices. We want to make sure that we give an opportunity to our local businesses or emerging businesses first. And with that, we want to be very mindful of how much we're charging people for rent. So that's a direction that we received from council. Phasing it out, it also makes us more competitive when we're looking for grants, because a lot of grants have a matching requirement. So being able to just talk about a phase, it enables us to have a match as a small jurisdiction and be able to move forward. The idea is that maybe we can start with the small truck pod, and then we can continue to work our way until we have a fully developed container village. Another project that is in traction is the Encampment Resolution Fund. This is a project that we're doing in collaboration with the County of Monterey. As you probably know, we've had a growing encampment at the riverbed right behind Food School. It's a it's been a health and safety hazard. If you haven't driven by that area recently, all of the trash has been removed and people have been fully relocated. So as of Tuesday, we cleaned up the site. But now we are truly enforcing that people shouldn't be camping there. And also the property owners need to be also attentive to that trash that is gathering in their private property. This time we collected the trash, but the next time it's the responsibility for the private owners to do that. People have been relocated to a provisional encampment site at 990 Los Coches, and we have 24 people that are receiving services there. And we have 11 people that are using a motel voucher at Motel 6. The idea is that we will build a tiny village out of modular units. That's going to be 16 beds. So the excess of people that we have, they're going to be looking for other type of accommodation, and only 16 people will be able to participate in the modular unit site. We expect the modular unit site to be done by August. So you will see people transition from the provisional encampment to the modular units, and then the modular units will be around until June of 2027. Also, recently, the school district project broke ground right across the street. So that's exciting to see. We will keep you updated on that one because that's an exciting project. We want to be able to support the school district, and we want to keep you updated on any developments for that, even though we tend to call it teacher housing. It's not just teacher housing, it's school district employee housing. So that will include also people who work in the cafeteria, people who work in their maintenance team. So it includes all of a school district employees. And the Soledad Marketplace, Tractor Supply is moving along. So we're doing everything that we can to help them stay within timeline. They hope to open the store before the holidays. They're making a lot of progress. They're moving fast, and we're working with them. The Vida Medical Center, it's done, where they're just waiting for some equipment to be installed so that they can open. But on the building side, they have been issued their building permit and they're ready to go. They're just finalizing the setup for their team. And Quick Quack, it will be coming to you in July probably. So we're working with Quick Quack they submitted an application, and then they will need a CUP amendment. So we will come to Planning Commission for the CUP amendment. And those are my main updates. I'm happy to put this into a formal report and send it your way. That way you have it handy.
That would be great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
There's a social media out there about a brewery.
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot about that one. I think
Real Rock.
Yeah.
Real
We just
Rock.
did the grand opening.
Sorry.
Chamber did that, yes.
commissioners, as Andy can provide probably a better update.
Yeah, so Real Rock Brewery is opening up. They're utilizing two empty bays that the theater did not open up. So one will be more of a entertainment venue where there will be live music, there'll be the brewery itself, some food, etc. There will be another space where you saw the social media happening, and that space, according to the gentlemen that were there, both the three owners and Ballesteri Construction were stating that that space will probably be an entertainment area that can be rented as a public venue for different events, more of an event venue that will be working in collaboration with the other space. So it's kind of exciting. It was really nice to see everybody working together. Ballesteri Construction actually became members of the Soledad Chamber of Commerce. We're growing quickly and just really excited. If you all know people who are in business or would like to have a little lift for their businesses, you know, just send them over to the website. They can join actually for a nominal fee. We started with a low fee looking at the community at large, as well as the fact that we were just starting. We are different than the Soledad Mission Chamber of Commerce. And we have made sure that Salinas City Chamber has corrected stuff on their website for that too. So it's a great thing. We're looking at, you know, we did Friday night just to kind of not miss the boat like many other cities. And a lot of people were real happy with Friday night. We're working in collaboration. So for this Friday night, right? Hey, come do your shopping early, go listen to music, you know, or listen to music, come get a bite to eat and do your shopping. We had thought about staying open until 9 o'clock, but we decided to do more of an early 4 to 8 and do the 4 hours. We originally did 3. The vendors were like, it's better if you do 4. So we listened to the vendors. And we're seeing some great progress with that. And part of it is too, is, you know, is the cleanup, you know, you're at people who are setting up, they're not out till like 9:30, 10 o'clock. So if we were to stay open till 9, like some people were saying. And the other discussion we had was actually adding a beer vendor. But right now we're really happy with the not serving beer. Especially with it, I think the big concern was just with the homeless encampment, you know, attracting maybe people who would just come just for the beer and not for the shopping. So that was a big piece. And it really helped increase sales for grocery outlet and foot traffic for the theater. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So I think we went over to commissioner announcements and reports.
Sorry.
Roberto?
Actually, I had a question about the encampment. What was the address again?
990 Los Coches.
So
So that-
It's, yeah,
the road.
on the roundabout,
Uh-huh.
next
So-
to the old,
So is it right at the end of the roundabout or on the side, or
at the end of the roundabout.
how does that affect the Pinnacles Parkway? Well, I mean,
Mhm.
I know it's gonna be until June 2027.
Mhm.
Parkway probably won't be in the works, but
Yeah,
does that affect it in any way, or?
so the project is grant funded, maybe Beatriz can work on the timeline, but talk about the timeline, but regarding the Pinnacles Parkway, and we just finished about the circulation and proposing that, we're still trying to aim for that, but that also requires that collaboration with other agencies, maybe Caltrans because of the 146, or I believe it's actually ours, but improvements with the Pinnacles Parkway will need us to annex land that is not within city limits. So we have to still go through that process. And without the funding to do that first, we kind of don't have a set timeline on that end.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the modular units that are gonna be used for the encampment are gonna be fully removed, so they take very little. You don't relieve a lot of damage in the property. It's gonna be very small concrete footings. So the idea is that when the project is done, if there is any remaining stuff that you will see, it will be the grading. But other than that, it's really the parcel if anything, it will have grading for whatever project comes next. But the idea is that those units will be fully removed.
Mhm.
So what's being done for them to be, so for the project to actually be done in 2027? For these individuals to
So
be
we-
able to move out and
Yeah, we have actually a very robust support services. So since we started working with them, we have at least 3 individuals that are seeking substance use assistance through the Sun Street Centers. We have another 3 individuals who are seeking assistance through behavioral health. We have 3 people that have been employed. It's not the same 3 people, it's different 3 people. 3 just, it started to sound like it's the same person. No. No, and then we have 2 people who are more ready to provide support to other peers. So part of the wraparound services that we are offering is housing navigation services. Some people also have some records, whether it is tickets or any active records. So that's the first thing that they need to take care of. We actually have 37 people in total, I think. We're serving 37 people total. No, all of them are staying we have some people that are staying in cars, but they use the facilities at the provisional encampment. So out of those 37 that we're providing supportive services to, 13 are undocumented. So the other piece that we're doing is making sure that they have their vital documents through the consulate. So we're doing everything from like getting people their vital documentation to getting them employed and looking for housing. The people that are at the motel is what we call people that are more housing ready. So people that are already looking for employment, people that are already seeking some level of supplemental income. And those are the ones that we think that we're gonna transition first to traditional housing. For the people at the encampment that will later transition to the modular units, for them, we have to provide more intensive case management, and that's being provided through Step Up. And we also started a new partnership with the behavioral health department, which has been they have been doing assessments on site, and that's been very helpful.
as far as the enforcement, so it doesn't happen again under the bridge.
Mhm.
I drove south on Tuesday or Monday, I believe, and it seemed like there was still stuff there. I don't know if the cleaning up happened after Monday, but there were still, from the freeway, you could still
Yes,
see
yeah.
items there.
Mm.
Yeah, the last cleaning happened on Tuesday. Yeah, and we're putting up signage, and PD along with the sheriff office, they will be enforcing the removal of people.
Okay.
Mhm. And then to clarify on the project too, not the entire property is being developed. It's only a small portion that is closer to the street, obviously for access and entrance, but it's not the entire property. It's probably less than half that is being developed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When I
It's
send
still a
you,
grant for Monterey County.
I think, is it a state grant?
it's a state
Yeah.
grant that we co-applied with the county, but the county was the main applicant, so they received the funding and then we became a subrecipient. But I'm happy to also, we now have the renderings for how the modular units are gonna look like. So when I give you my report in writing, I'm happy to link also the renderings so that you can see how this will look like.
Mhm.
Is that the camera up there?
Yes.
Okay, so I did want to make an announcement. For those watching on Facebook, Zoom, YouTube, wherever this is being aired, as you heard today, we hear the public's comments. We encourage you to come to the meetings, share these videos, and share with your friends, your neighbors to come to the meetings. If you do have issues or concerns, this would be the place to air those out. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
I have no comments for me. So we'll move on and we'll close the meeting.
Mhm. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you.
at 8:32.